impression, the residual rasa that Astad Deboo left when he performed, when he collaborated, just when he posed, the incredible abhinaya that came out of even his photographs. Every moment of his, or every face that he revealed to the world, had a certain kind of an inflection, a certain kind of a prism. And maybe it's in all these facets and the reflections and the refractions that we are beginning to understand Astad Deboo. Truly quite original, a star as his name signifies. But our speaker, our next speaker, classical dancer, a philosopher, somebody who is deeply invested in the Indic strain of thought. And she has a very interesting backstory about her connection and her introduction to Astad Deboo. I want you to meet Ramaa Bharadvaj. She used to live in California. She was the director of a very well-known dance school. She and her daughter were on the cover of Dance magazine. So after all that achievement, she moved to India and is in charge. She's like the cultural director of Chinmaya Nada Bindu, which is a beautiful ashram just outside Pune. But Ramaa is here today to honor Astad on his 74th birthday with a very unusual backstory. And that story involves my dance web portal, nartaki.com. So I'm going to allow her to tell you the way she and Astad met. Ramaa, take it away.
Thank you, Anita. So yes, so in the timeline of my friendship with Astad, there were two events that were pivotal in the developing and then the deepening of our kinship. And both of them happened because of Nartaki and its editor, Lalita Venkat. So today I want to share those two stories with some backstories. So event one has to do with my introduction to Astad. So it was about 20 years ago and I was living in the US. And I came across an online newspaper interview of this dancer named Astad. And there was one sentence in that that fascinated me, that Astad considered every performance as a penance. And so on that day, he fasted. And I went bonkers over this statement. Because, you know, we Bharatanatyam dancers, we are always talking about eating bananas for potassium and grapes for hydration and all that.
Peanut butter, dark chocolate,
Yeah.
dark chocolate. Yes.
Absolutely. And then, so here is this dancer who fasted. And I thought, oh, wow. So this man has figured out how to tap into something beyond physical energy. And visually also, he looked nothing like any dancer that I have met. And I thought, gee, this is my exact thought. He looks like a medicine man who has come down from the mountains. And then this intense longing kind of swelled up in my heart. I said, oh, how I wish I could meet him in person. And then there ended that. And at that time, I had just started writing dance commentaries for nartaki.com, thanks to the persuasive charms of Lalita. And so in 2002, when I was visiting Chennai, we decided to just hang out together and have fun for 2 days. And at that time, she asked me if I would like to meet an interesting dancer from Mumbai, who is currently in Chennai. And he was working with hearing impaired students.
Yes, the Clark School for the Deaf. Correct.
And he was going to take them on a foreign performance tour. And then when she mentioned his name, Astad Deboo, my heart stopped. And I said, my God, dreams do come true. So my first introduction to Astad was seeing him as a mentor, not as a performer. And for an hour, I watched him train with precision, you know, and sensitivity. This hearing impaired girl named Kartika, I think it was her name was. And I was so moved, and I just opened my purse and I think I had some $30 in US American dollars. So I just took $30 and I gave it to him and I said, my donation for your foundation. And then he took it very graciously and then he took down my postal address. And then, starting from that very year, he began corresponding with me and never stopped. And in the beginning, it would be snail mail. He would send me postcards and greeting cards for my birthday and for New Year. And and this continued for several years. And I even told him, Astad, that $30 that I gave you is kaput, gone in international postage. Okay, it's over. So, but he did it anyway, and that was who he was. He had this innate sense of gratitude, and he remembered with appreciation every friend who crossed his path, and he kept in touch with them. And I think that it was this inherent synergetic spirit in him, in his life, that kind of translated into art, and that is why it made him as a great collaborator. This is my idea. And then these connections that he also made did not come with that, sneakiness to network for the sake of his career. And that was what very special about him. And here I want to just share this story. In 2014, I had invited him to come to Nadavindu Festival. And he came as a chief guest. And as you know, it happens in an ashram. So there are sannyasis who are there. And I introduced him to one of the sannyasinis, the Swamini. She was a writer and a poetess, and she was editing a children's magazine. And she wanted to, interview Astad for her magazine. And that day, he took down her phone number, and it became a permanent part of his address list. And then regularly, once in a while, he would call her to find out how she was doing. And so she was so moved. And one day she told me, she said, I'm a sannyasi. I don't even go out of the ashram. I'm not a potential audience for him. I'm not a potential program presenter. I'm not a journalist who can give him any publicity. I have nothing to offer him. And yet he calls simply to ask how I'm doing. How much of kindness does it take for someone to do this? And, actually he did this a lot during the pandemic time, lockdown time. So I told him what the sannyasi friend had told me. And you know what? He replied. He said, Ramaa, there's so much sadness. People are hurting. If my phone call can brighten up one day of one person, why not? I thought it was just beautiful. And he was a superstar. And in his career field, of course, he had to maintain a persona and a discipline and all that. But outside of his career, he never allowed that stardom to touch his body. And one day I told him this. I said, Astad, you wear your stardom as lightly and as gracefully as your ankle length stage costume. Slip on and slip off. This is exactly what I told him. And then he laughed, and then he liked it, and then he said, only you can come up with something like that. So anyway, that is my event one, a story of how I met Astad because of Lalita and Nartaki. Now, event two, this has direct connection to Nartaki. In 2009, I had moved back from the US to Bengaluru. And whenever he came here to teach or perform, he would call me and invite me, but I never could go. But he never got annoyed. He never gave up on me, and he kept me in the loop. So in 2016, when I found out that he was coming to Chennai with his Manipuri troupe to perform at Kalakshetra, I said, what the heck, I'm going to get into the train and I'm going to go to Chennai just to see Astad perform. And I won't tell him about it. I'll go and surprise him. So I got into the train. I went there and walked into Kalakshetra. And in the back, the green room door is there, no? So I went there and knocked on the door. Who is it? Sir, I'm a student. I would like to wish you, sir. Right? So just a minute. And then he comes, opens the door, and there I'm standing like a Cheshire cat, grinning. His eyes popped and his jaw dropped. He just leaped out of that room. And you know what he did? He just literally scooped me up. He carried me up. And I clung on to his neck, and we did this twirl, like the Bollywood movie, hero, heroine. And then you put me down, and all these Kalakshetra students are all looking like amusement, maybe even scandalized. I don't know. But we didn't care. We were just so happy. And I said, I came all the way just to see you in my hometown. And he said, thank you. And he said, you made my day. So anyway, I came back into the auditorium, and who do I see there? Lalita Venkat. She was the one who introduced me to him in the first place. Anyway, so we decided, hey, we'll sit together. So we did, and then the program started. And I tell you, Anita, it was one mystic experience. And by that, I don't mean peaceful, serene, and happy. You know, that happened in the end. But before that, you know, I always think that a truly mystic experience first strips you. And if you resist, it will put you through the ringer. And finally, when you give up, that is when you truly have that experience. And that's exactly what Astad's performance did to me. Because there was none of that comfortable familiarity, you know, that a Bharatanatyam dancer imagines. And the first thing that happened was this stripping of this intellectual obsession that we Bharatanatyam dancers have for wanting to know the meaning of every gesture.
Yes.
You know, right? So, but here in this dance, that immediate gratification did not happen. And my mind did not like this. So it rebelled, it screamed silently, it wandered, it turned itself off, and then it even attempted to sneak into crevices in his dance to find meaning. And when nothing worked, finally it gave up. And then it actually happened. This kind of layers of interpretations began unfolding inside me from his dance. And I realized that instead of me trying to enter his dance had already entered me. And the next 1 hour, I tell you, was supreme bliss. It was a state of, if I have to describe it, I would say it was a state of mindlessness and acute awareness. And it's not that I'm new to modern dance. I've lived in the US and I'm very familiar with modern dance. Good companies, solos I've seen, but I've never experienced anything like that either before Astad or after Astad. So this was, and then in the end, he got a standing ovation. And then Lalita and I looked at each other and we said, wow, that's it. Then Lalita said to me, hey, Ramaa, so this is your first Astad experience. Why don't you write a review for Nartaki? You will be able to bring a dancer's viewpoint and a perspective that no journalist or reviewer can. So I wrote a really lovely one, if I can say so myself. And it was not a review. I wrote it as an article and I called it, I think, Reflections on a River. And it's still up on Nartaki. If you go to year 2016, you can go read it. And when it was published, Astad called. And for the first time, and probably the only time, he was speechless. He only said a couple of things to me, and I remember both of them. First thing he said was, Ramaa, you have not only understood my work completely, you have understood me completely. That was the first one. And then the second thing he said was, I'm so glad you are in my life. And this statement he said several times afterwards to me, but that was the first time. So this was in April 2016. And at that time, Astad and Professor Ketu Katrak of California had teamed up together to edit a special magazine edition on Indian contemporary dance for Marg publications.
Yes.
And it was a mega project, and Astad was going to be the cover story. And Marg had already selected this really well-known journalist, I don't remember her name, Carla, I don't know. Selected her, and they were in the process of sending her, contract and all that. And then this Nartaki article came out at that time. So Astad decided, her name was Carol, right? So Astad decided, Carol can write about my foundation, but I want my story to be told by Ramaa. And that's how I got the cover story assignment of Astad's, first biographical thing, handpicked by him. And it was because of Lalita and my Nartaki article, directly connected. Otherwise, there is no chance, he would have read my writing. And then for the interview, he flew to Bengaluru, and for 2 days, from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., we talked. I cooked for him, and we laughed and joked and chatted. And that's when we became really close. There was even one day when I said to him, Astad, don't you feel like we are one soul in two bodies? we had that much in common, and we just became buddies after that. And we talked, and then after that we talked regularly, and at least once a week. And anyway, when the article was done, he loved it, and I had called it Astad, Deboo, Pilgrim, Pathfinder, and Protagonist. That was the title, and he loved the title. And he also loved the way I had captured his the person behind the persona, the dancer. So, but I felt, when the magazine came out, I felt Astad had already moved on with so many projects. And now I look at this article and it felt like it was already dated. And so I told him, Astad, you don't need a biography. You need a running commentary to keep up with your life. Okay, so that's who he was. And that's one admirable quality in him. You know, he did not live in the past. He was not interested in resting on his laurels. And in fact, in the interview, when I asked him about the Padma Shri Award and the Sangeet Nataka Academy Award, he said, yeah, I'm grateful, but it was given to me for the work that I did in my past. So it belongs in the past. One has to better oneself with each show. And you know, that Padma Shri citation, it's not even hanging on his wall, it's hanging in his sister Gulshan's wall. She showed me. Okay. And so I was saying this to somebody, said, Astad lived like there was going to be no tomorrow. Maybe that's why he exhausted all his vasanas, his karmas. And before he could accumulate any more, God said, okay, enough, come on, let's go, and took him away. But this God can take away Astad, but he cannot take away our memories, you know. So, or his legacy. So I want to thank you, Anita, for creating this day for us to do just that.
Thank you, Ramaa. The thing is, I wanted to, of course, thank you for hand-holding this entire group of 17 people for the day, and dragging some people even onto Instagram for this day, and literally, you know, hand-holding them, because technology has become such a generational thing, and every generation just seizes it, and still, with the best of intentions, Insta Devi will decide to do something at the last minute.
I know. That happened a couple of times today, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we can conclude, what would you say his legacy is? What would be his legacy?
Yeah, I actually thought about it because you had sent us that, you know, series of maybe questions, and this was part of it. So I actually thought about it. And, you know, a legacy is something that is valuable, that you consider as a legacy if it is valuable to you. So I'm not going to talk about his dance and his contemporary dance and all that, but there was something behind that that made him so endearing, you know. So I made a list of about 6. So I'm going to kind of read them out to you, okay? First, his ability to befriend life itself and all that life has to offer. And second, his philosophy that each day was a gift of seeing and experiencing. He actually said this to me in the interview. 3, his definition of contemporary dance. He said, it's a dance done in the now with movements that has all my experiences in it. And then next, his priority in life. He did not travel to dance. He danced to travel. And in the same way, he did not make friends to create networking for his career. He networked to make friends. So he had his priorities set. And then next, his belief that sometimes the going might be delayed, but it is never denied. He said that, these are his words. Then finally, his quest, which has been less about finding a place for himself in the art world, but more about shaping a life of purpose for himself. So these, I think, are the legacies. And young artists can look at it and say, you know, you can be a nice person, you can be a kind person, you don't have to stab people in the back, and still you can be successful.
Yes, I think it is, if you think of Astad Deboo, Ramaa, it's like you need more than one life to accomplish what he did.
Absolutely.
You know, you need more than one life. He's done so much.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking today, like the country that he loved so much, India, he would have started his 75th year as India begins her 75th year of independence. You know, he's a midnight child born 1 month before India's independence. I'm thinking, my God, you know, I've always felt, and I think there was sometimes here and there little sadness in him that his country did not recognize him soon enough, or, you know, but I just feel that in listening to the people from all these various walks of life, family, friends, collaborators, dancers, presenters, producers, that he really is one of a kind, just one of a kind.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if India will ever produce another Astad Deboo, because it was a historical time that his Atma came.
Yes,
a historical
absolutely,
time.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
And
if Uday Shankar can be called as the father of, you know, in modern dance, he's consisted of, you know, folk and Indian nationalism, but Astad's consisted of internationalism in his style, along with, you know, Indian. So there were two different, very valuable contributors to that genre of contemporary dance in India.
Yeah. Thank you, Ramaa. It's been an absolute delight, and thank you once again for your thoughts, this interaction, and for all that you've done backstage to bring this day together.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for trusting me and asking me. So
I know how to trust the right people.
Yes, I know that.
And I know how to delegate.
Yes, you do.
And I don't interfere. Thank you, Ramaa. Lovely. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.